Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Virtue Signal. I'm Bill Whittle with my friend Alfonso Rachel, and this is a show where we talk a little bit about what's beneath the surface on modern politics. Zo, we don't use many visual aids on this show. In fact, I'm not sure we ever did once, but here's a graph that most people will find interesting. Zo, as you can see here, the previous biggest increase in the murder rate in the country was in 1968, where murders increased 12.7%. This year, it's increased 30%. 30%. Some people, knuckle-dragging conservatives who don't really understand social science and all the rest of it, claim that it has to do with this defund the police idea, that if we remove the police force from these inner cities, the murder rate will continue and climb. And it's not just inner cities. You remove the police from any place and the murder rate is going to go up. I remember a headline from 10 years ago or whatever it was, New York Times, where they were like saying, crime has reached an all-time low despite the fact that more Americans are in prison than ever before. Couldn't get the connection. I don't really want to talk about the defund the police thing so much, and I don't even really want to talk about the crime thing so much. So what I want to talk about is how willfully blind do you have to be to continue to have this philosophy when things like this and everything else beside it is so obviously telling you that you're just dead wrong. You're not only kind of wrong, you are 180 degrees away from the truth all the time. What do you say to people with this kind of willful blindness who can look at a statistic like this and still not figure out, that maybe your ideas are not such good ideas?
Well, now let me, help me out if I'm just to make sure I'm tracking with you correctly. So in 1968, the graph was up 78%?
No, 12.5%,
Okay.
12.7%. 12.7% was the biggest increase in the murder rate we've seen in recorded history, at least in modern history. In 1968, murders went up 12.7%. In 2020, they went up 30%. And this is because of the police forces being reduced. And why is it that people can see numbers like this? Maybe that's the issue. Maybe they just don't see the numbers.
Well, we do have this issue of people being imagination land, and they're given over to sensationalism and people wanting to believe what they want to believe. And if there's going to be something to the effect of them taking personal responsibility, they don't want to take no personal responsibility for that. So with the left, in terms of like how people are committing murder, and I think it's kind of strange that murder isn't even the thing anymore. That's not something that we're concerned about. The only thing that's killing people is COVID. That's the only thing that's killing people.
And racism. COVID and racism.
COVID and
those
racism.
Are the two main, yeah, those are murder's trivial compared to these things.
And I'm not saying that to be facetious. This is a real thing. So
no, it is a real thing.
Somehow we've gone away from, gun crimes and all that. That all of a sudden doesn't matter anymore. The only thing that's killing people is COVID. And of course, the racist who don't believe the science, because of course, if you're a racist, you don't believe science anyway. That's the thing that's getting people killed, which, maybe as far as they're concerned, maybe they should pay attention to their own narrative, because I guess murder has gone up because we unvaxxed or unmasked wearing people who don't believe in the science and all that stuff. We're contributing to people getting killed. Now,
but we're talking about actual murder. Now, we're not talking about total deaths. We're talking about the murder rate is up 30%. And I want to know, basically what I'm asking you is an unanswerable question, but yes. I want to know what it takes for a progressive to realize that this is so obvious. What is it going to take for you to realize that ideas like yours are not only just wrong and stupid, they're catastrophically wrong and they're tragically stupid?
Well, the thing I'm trying to get down to is the absurdities that keep them from seeing the way that you want them to see. Like I said, given over to this groupthink, this herd mentality of this narrative that's going on. They're just totally given over to it. They're given over to the sensationalism of it. They're given over to the self-righteousness of it and thinking that they're like, in some way, this pseudo hero who's doing, instead of wearing a cape, they're wearing a mask. Instead of having an S on their chest, they got the brand of a vaccine. So these are the things that make them feel like these heroes in their mind. So they can't see the things that are happening that are just obvious and right there in front of them in terms of how these rates go up and the thing that's playing out in the real world. They're, like I said, they're always looking for their own truth. And these are the things that get in the way. And that's just a snapshot. That's just a little bit. The narrative that's going out, this totally keeps them distracted from that. They're distracted from these actual numbers that you're giving. That's a distraction. So in terms of the police, honestly, Bill, I don't even know what to say about the police. If we've got the police right now, we're saying defund the police, and which is a dumb idea. But at the same time, a lot of these police are upholding these oppressive laws that we're having to go by.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's an interesting point. Yeah, that's right. They're the ones who, and it's not so much, I don't think in many cases the police officers as the police, the woke police captains. No, you can have the show you did on Right Angle not too long ago. Policemen can watch Antifa beat up Christians and sit in their cars because they've been ordered to do so. But comes a point when you really have to say to yourself, hey, defund the police or not, I can't do this. I cannot be, being a policeman is not an easy job. It takes a special kind of person. It's probably the hardest job there is. And to be able to be the kind of person who can sit in a car and watch some group of people beat up another group of people and be forbidden to do so because I've got orders from my police chief, political orders, I can't continue to be a policeman under those circumstances. I gotta hand in the badge. If I can't do what I'm called to do, and that is enforce the law and try to provide some sense of justice, then I gotta resign. Yeah. And all over the country, we're seeing not just the defunding of the police, but the demoralization of the police. And I don't. It's not. They don't even have the excuse of being able to say I don't see it. I'll give you an example. I have some friends who were just in town, conservative friends, and they did a tour of the country, and they had friends from a long time ago who are now in Oregon, and they're super, super liberals, imagine. And my friends weren't picking any fights, so they basically just took them around, show them around Portland. Well, they got to parts of Portland where BLM and all the rest of it had really taken root and defund the police, and it was a war zone. Burned out buildings and just garbage everywhere and homeless everywhere and disease everywhere. And they just got quiet, the hosts, they just got quiet. It's like, nope, don't see this. Yeah. Don't see this at all. Not there. Nope. No. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Because if I do it, I might admit I'm wrong about something. And there I think is where the heart of it is the fundamental lack of humility. I've changed my mind about most of the important things in my life, and if somebody makes better case, I'll change them again. But I don't think that's likely to happen because I'm out there testing them now. But this is the thing, this is the thing that I'm looking at in this show, Zo, is not blindness, it's willful blindness. It's an entirely different thing. That old saw, there are none so blind as those who will not see. Not that those who cannot see, those who will not see. People who have eyes to see things and simply shut them are incapable of getting any picture of reality. A blind person, a genuinely blind person, can perceive reality through sight, through smell and touch and hearing and all the rest of it. But a willfully blind person lives in a kind of darkness that is impenetrable.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to see examples of what that willful blindness looks like, or not being able to apologize, just just spend a day in traffic on your way to work. Somebody's going to cut you off, or they're gonna make a bad move in traffic. Pull out in front of you or whichever. And when you drive up next to them, straight ahead, man. They're not going to manage. Are they going to give you the "I'm so sorry"? Nope. Hardly ever. Right? Every maybe once in a while, you might see something like that. And it's the same thing when narratives going like this. People don't want to admit, or they're just sold, on the idea that they're doing the right thing, that they're righteous people, they're a good person and all that sort of stuff.
That's it. They're righteous people.
Yes.
They believe the right things, and all of the other people around them tell them these are the right things to believe in. And God knows if we start asking questions, we might end up like the conservatives who are clearly evil, have been their entire lives. And so therefore, I'm not going to see the homelessness. I'm not going to see the crime. I'm not going to see the murder rate. I'm not going to see the poverty rate. I'm not going to see the falling standards of education. I'm not going to see the obesity. I'm not going to see any of it. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to continue on because I am too terrified to ask questions about things that are right in front of my eyes.
Indeed, man. And this kind of Pharisaic, approach that these people have. And this is stuff that the Lord was dealing with. It's like, man, check you guys out. You guys act like you're all righteous, you definitely got scales over your eyes. It's like we got all this poverty going around. We got people with disease and all that sort of stuff. You got you're extorting these people. Here they're coming to the temple and you're making them pay these, making them feel like, hey, if you're not willing to pay this much for this goat, then you really don't love God. And it's like, are you doing this to people? It's like, this is the kind of stuff that you're doing. No wonder you guys stay in a state of oppression, man. No wonder you're under somebody else's rule. It's like, are you serious? So, but of course, what people see is that Jesus, and we're bourgeois and we're capitalists, and that's why we're so evil. And that's why the police are only servants of the prison industrial complex. That's all they see in it. And then they take that to Jesus and say, Jesus hated these kind of things too. It's like, no, that's not why Jesus went in there and started turning over temples and threw a hissy fit and all that sort of stuff. Totally different reasons. One of those reasons why he went in there is to let people know that he was God. He said it himself. But at any rate, what I'm saying is that when people want to look at these narratives, they overlook a whole bunch of things, and they themselves become the modern day Pharisees, the people that Jesus couldn't stand. It's like, look, you guys are whitewashed sepulchres, man. You guys you're glowing white on the outside, but inside you're dead man's bones. This stuff is shallow. It means nothing. You're out there, worshiping and praising and acting like you're such a good person. It's fake. It's fake news. And the things that need to be done, the things that need to be supported, and the things that you're trying to get rid of, these are the things that are causing problems towards people. And it's the same way today. You're talking about defunding the police, and you want to get rid of these institutions that are supposed to be grounded in something to be able to uphold our God-given rights. These are the things that you're trying to get rid of.
This is really fascinating. I really like the idea of thinking about progressives as Pharisees. I certainly don't have the degree of education on this as you do, but my limited understanding of Pharisees are people who believe that if I follow the rules to the letter, then I am intrinsically good, and it doesn't really matter where my heart is or even what the outcome is. These are the rules, and as long as I check these boxes, then I'm as good as it gets. And that certainly seems to be the case with progressives. We have a set of things that we believe in, and it doesn't matter whether they do harm or not. We know that Democrats running cities are more compassionate than Republicans are, and yet we have 8,000 murders in inner cities, black-on-black murders that are all run by Democrats and have been for 3 generations. We're not going to look at the actual outcome. We just know that our religion says that as long as we believe these things, we're good people. And what we actually think, whatever racism that these progressives actually have, you've talked about this so many times. Oh, look, Planet of the Apes. Really? What made you think of that? All of this stuff is irrelevant as long as they believe in the right things and they write checks to the right causes and they put the Black Lives Matter signs up and they vote for the Democrats and all the rest of it. Then the consequences be damned. Their intentions be damned. It doesn't matter. They're going straight to heaven because they check off the right boxes.
Yes. And the sad part about it is that, yes, the Pharisees, just like our so-called progressives, are very legalistic.
Legalistic, that's the word. Yes. It's a belief. It's a belief in the. It's a belief in the structure regardless of what the real world says. That's the thing about progressives. That's why they can't see these things.
Right.
The classic line is, yes, it works in practice, but will it work in theory? And this is what they are. It's all about this kind of construct, this kind of fantasy construct of how things should be. And therefore, as long as I adhere to this fantasy construct, then everything's got to be cozy despite what my own lying eyes are telling me.
Right. And the legalism is only matched by, their misinterpretation of things. It's like you're going to be legalistic about this law or this principle that you don't even really understand. You're imagining something about how this works, and it's very impractical. I mean, like I said, when we're talking about, the police, I've said before, here's the Lord saying, okay, you are looking to kill me because I healed a man on the Sabbath. Okay. You guys don't really understand how this works. Number one, you guys are hypocrites, as progressives tend to be. They're total hypocrites. None of this stuff applies to them. They want other people to kowtow to their legalism, but it doesn't apply to them. And it takes on so many things. You got these people going around policing Jesus. Just like if you really honored the Sabbath the way you're expecting me to, you would be at home. You wouldn't be following me around. What are you trying to write me a citation for? You don't understand the law. I understand the law. I'm the one who wrote it. But I'm not going to sit here and take liberties with the law and interpret it however I want to make myself look like I'm a more righteous person like you guys are. You guys take gross liberties with this law and it leads to chaos and it leads to oppression and it leads to murder, right? So these are the things that you guys are doing. Rather than consulting with me, the actual author of the law, you're trying to assume to kill me and reject the fact that I'm the one who wrote the law. You got these progressives out there who do the same thing. They don't consult. They don't consult with how the law was written. They make interpretations and then they come up with their own laws, and then they're legalistic about their own self-righteousness and their interpretation of the law that benefits them, and make themselves out to be a representative that if this works for me, it'll work for you. That's the image that I want you to believe. That's not how I really feel.
Yeah.
But I want you to believe that.
Yeah. Intellectual integrity is important. Any kind of integrity is important to people who have a conscience and a soul. And so when I look at these issues, I always try to see it from the other point of view, and I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So for example, the murder rate spikes by 30% in 1 year. I can say things like, well, it's possible that these progressives just didn't get the memo because it's certainly not being advertised. And if all you do is turn on the TV or CNN and you've been told that every other news source is corrupted by conservatives, you wouldn't know, and so you wouldn't know. But, since the subject of this is willfully blind, the thing that they cannot escape is something you mentioned, is the exemptions to the rules that they command others live by, the exemptions that they write for themselves.
Yes.
We should have higher taxes, but not for me. You have to tell my attorney to get every tax break you possibly can and walk your toes to the line, but don't step over it, that kind of thing. Anybody should be able to enter the country anytime they want to, but not on my property. I have private security, and if somebody steps foot on my celebrity lawn without being invited, they're going to jail, and don't tell anybody because I've just said anybody should be able to go through. What are doors and what are gates? They're just constructs for racists. and you go down the list, all of it. You find that Congress is exempted from the vaccine. You find that Congress is writing exemptions to the vaccine for unions. All we have to do is get rid of COVID, is unionize the entire country. Problem solved. And again and again and again and again and again and again and again. You guys got guys like Harvey Weinstein who are constantly out there writing enormous checks for women's causes, and Bill Clinton, the champion of women, all of this stuff. And always, 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 they do not do what they tell other people to do. They say you got to stay locked in your house, but we're going to go out and have an expensive dinner because ha ha ha. And this is what I mean by willfully blind.
Yes.
I have come to believe that there is nothing that is going to change their minds about things, because I guess where I'm going with this is ultimately it's not a question that they don't see it. And it's a question that of course they see it. Of course they see it. They just don't care.
Yeah. What they do care about is their self-righteousness, their narrative.
Their privilege.
Yes.
It's an interesting term that they throw around at everybody else, but really what they're protecting is their privilege, the privilege of the governing class to not have to obey the same laws that they're enforcing on everybody else, and all the rest of this privilege.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they can't possibly think that these things that they're so worried about that is leading to the deaths of people has nothing to do with them. And as long as they've got, I guess, all the resources to blame somebody else with it, heck, why not? And they can just go ahead and enjoy their mental cubicle or their mental safe space or whichever, where they don't have to share a sense of responsibility or partake in a sense of responsibility when anybody else, can just go ahead and assume the blame for it. Why not?
Yeah, what do you this is a point you make so often, and it can't be made often enough. It's just so powerful. When you get like these white liberal SJWs talking about how you've got to curb your privilege, watch your white privilege. What they're basically saying is, if white people don't restrain themselves, then they will do nothing but oppress black people and people of color for all of time. And that is the greatest statement of white supremacy that it's possible to make.
Yeah.
What you're basically saying is, if you white people don't start taking a knee, then everybody else is going to be oppressed forever. And it's like, so what? So you're saying that people of color they're so fragile that that if they hear anything that offends them, they just burst into tears. You're saying they're not capable of getting up on their own 2 feet without some white liberal telling other white people that you got to allow this to happen?
Yes.
I mean, my God, how racist and how privileged do you have to be for you to say, I'm a white person and I'm telling all of you other white people, you've got to stop being so white so that these people have a chance to succeed.
Yes, I'm the better white. At the end of the day, they still think that they're better people, better white people.
Of course they are. That's what the whole thing's about, is that we're superior people. We've got to stop being so superior so that these other people have a chance. That's all this is.
Yes. Yes.
It's just plain open racism.
And it's a part of the machine that keeps people in this state of insecurity. And, with these insecurities and with this damaged, ego that people have.
That's it again. Always ego, pride.
Yes. And you're going to have people out there killing each other. And you're not going to have an effective protection in place, because those insecurities, get dumped on to the people who are supposed to be out there protecting the peace. They can't do their job, so you either defund them or demoralize them or whichever. So now they can't do their job, leaving people to prey on other people's insecurities, or vent their insecurities on other people. I'm not this color. I'm not this weight. I'm not this income bracket. I'm not this. I'm not that. And I feel like I'm entitled to be, and I hate everybody else because I'm not. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do something about it. And it gets people killed. Or they institute policies, or they vote to institute policies that keep people in a state of arrested development because, well, we don't have. So everybody's got to pay their fair share. And as the saying goes, we got to share in each other's misery. And you know what? In this instance, I want to get in the boat. And if everybody's got to go down with me so I can get in that boat,
that's it.
Then so be it.
Yep. If I have to lower standards for everybody, as long as I get what I want, that's great. If I'm legally blind and I want to be a fighter pilot, and instead of facing the fact that I can't be a fighter pilot because I'm legally blind, then I am going to scream and yell until the ability to see is no longer a requirement to be a fighter pilot, and I'm going to get what I want. And just to close this, you have so much insight on this, but looking at the 10 Commandments, I know a lot of people look at this and they say, okay, so you got thou shalt not murder. That's understandable. Why is that after thou shalt have no other gods before me? Why is that first? And I realized, well, because if I'm not first, then everything that follows doesn't make any sense. If I'm telling you not to do these things and Baal says do it, then what's the point of the other 9 commandments? You gotta, what that's basically saying is you gotta understand that this is the authority, but the commandment I'm most interested in is the one that P.G. O'Rourke had such an effect on me which is the 10th commandment, and that is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or thy neighbor's donkey or thy neighbor's this and this and this. And P.G. O'Rourke took the liberty of filling in the rest of the sentence when he said, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property, ... Go out and get your own.
Yes, you have the freedom to be able to do that. That's what it's all about. And the freedom to be able to do it. That's why the top commandment is, just like you said, I am the Lord your God, who brings you up out of Egypt. Now, that seems more like a statement than it is a command. But it is a commandment. It is a statement and it's a command. Because here's the thing. Egypt itself means bondage. The word Egypt means house of slavery. I did not know that. Is that really true? Is that what the word came from? That's what the word Egypt means. It means the house of slavery, the house of bondage. What God is saying, it is against the law for you to be oppressed and to oppress other people. In me is liberty. I am the Lord your God who brings you out of Egypt. In me is liberty. I want you to be free to use what you have, but follow these commandments. In doing what you do, don't be coveting other people's stuff. Don't steal, don't slander and all that sort of stuff. Don't do these things for your own gains.
It's a contract. I'll give you freedom if you behave like a decent person. And if you can't behave like a decent person being free, then back into slavery you go.
Yes, that's what it comes down to. So, and just like you said, if we don't have, now where does this idea of morality come from? Where can it come from? And that's why it stops. It's right here. Just like you said, well, you can follow Baal. Baal may have a whole totally different set of principles, or you can go by the noble truths of Buddha, which not like that. But all those things are still going to be these virtues. There has to be a standard of it rather than these different interpretations of it. Because which interpretation do we follow? No, it's got to come down to one. And if we don't follow that one, it's going to get distorted. It's going to turn into chaos. So there's that first one. And that first one is rooted in liberty right from the get-go. That's the supreme article, is rooted in liberty. And then from there, man, you got the freedom to go out and pursue. You don't need to be coveting somebody else's stuff. Go get your own.
This is really the issue. And just to close it, I think the real reason that progressives are so willfully blind and allow so much damage to happen as they pat themselves on the back is because of ego. And ultimately, when you get right down to it, it's because they don't believe that there is anything greater than themselves. They themselves and their needs and their desires for the moment are the most important things in the world. And I know that in a 12-step program, when you're trying to break yourself from the slavery of addiction, you have to develop a belief in a higher power. Now, you can go into a 12-step program as an atheist, but you can't go into a 12-step program and not believe in a higher power. And for me at the time, I remember having that problem and saying, well, I don't believe in God. I was 25, I think. And they said, well, okay, do you believe that there's anything more powerful in the universe than you are? Yeah. Well, what do you think is more powerful than you are, Bill? I don't know. Waves crashing against the Pacific? Well, then waves will be your higher power for the time being. The first step in recovering from addiction, which is a medicating a disease of emptiness, is to understand that there's something bigger than you are. And it's not just so that you can worship it. It's so that you can hand off your troubles to it. There are things that are unsolvable by individual people, and religious people understand, I'm going to let this go. I'm going to let God handle this because it's beyond my control. And that gives them peace. And this is how you teach people who don't have that knowledge how to live in the world. And it is ultimately, when you get right down to it, ultimately, the only effective cure for addiction is the installation of humility. Not humiliation, you get plenty of that, but genuine humility, an understanding that, no, I am not the center of the universe, and no, the world does not turn around me, and no, that person probably didn't cut me off because they don't like me, because that probably never met me before. And all of this self-centeredness that comes from having no self is all predicated on ego and pride and its installation of humility and a sense of you aren't the Lord of the universe. You don't get to do everything you want all the time. That's what makes people healthy. It's what makes society healthy. And this is what our friends on the progressive side of the aisle could use a strong dose of right away. And booster shots repeatedly over the course of the next several years until it really takes. That'll do it for this edition of the Virtue Signal, made possible by our friends and associates and citizen producers who are the members at BillWhittle.com. The show's made possible by regular people, and that's why we can talk about whatever we want to and don't have to worry about being fired, ever. So if you want to be one of those folks that writes our paycheck, we would love to have you. You can go to BillWhittle.com and become a member. If you've been watching for a while and you aren't, think that over. For Alfonso Rachel, I'm Bill Whittle. We'll see you next time here on the Virtue Signal.